you so much for joining this session. I can see that a lot of people have joined already. I hope you guys can hear my voice and see me, and also the presentation. I would really appreciate it if you guys can give a confirmation in the chat. Wonderful. Thank you, Steve. Thank you so much. So, great. Thank you, Christina. So what I'll do is before we get started there, I'll just walk you through some of the key things that are going to be quite helpful for us throughout the session. Yeah, so what we're going to do is on this session, people who are new to Showtime, on the left side, I'll give you a walkthrough of what you have and how you can make use of those things. You'll be able to see the question section on the left side. I strongly recommend that you use that to ask any questions that you have throughout the session. We have our trainers available on this session who will be answering those questions for you. And time to time, we'll be running some polls just to make sure that you can hear the trainers clearly, and also to make sure whether the pace is fine or whether we need to increase the speed or whether we need to slow down a bit. And also on the left side, you have the chat option. You can use that to let us know if you're facing some difficulties. Maybe if the screen goes blank, or if you're not able to hear my voice, or if you're not able to see the presentation, use the chat option to let me know what's going wrong. And generally what happens is if the screen goes blank, please try reloading the page. That should resolve the issue in most of the cases. If it still doesn't, we'll try to figure out what went wrong. And worst case scenario, if everyone is facing the same issue, that is if the screen has gone blank, and most of you, even after trying refreshing, if it doesn't work, that means the issue is on my end and I need to refresh the page. Don't worry, my team will let me know that the issue is on my end, and I'll have that sorted out by refreshing my screen. And also at any point in time, if by mistake I leave the mic muted, or if I don't start sharing my screen and I'm on a completely different page, do let me know in the chat so that I can fix that immediately. And also on the left side, you have the handouts option. You can use that. And there specifically, there is one particular file called Zoho Books tasks. People who are completely new to Zoho Books, I would recommend them to use this particular handout, because this has quite a few tasks, pretty basic tasks. And once we're done with this session, you should be able to perform all those tasks with ease. So we'll be covering some of the basics in Zoho Books, and then we'll get into more advanced topics. But people who are completely new, you can have a look at those tasks once we're done with this session. And as I said, you should be able to complete all those tasks with ease, and then you can start looking into much more advanced concepts. And yeah, so we will be going through a lot of topics today. So I'm going to walk you through the agenda here. But before that, there are just few more things that I need to tell you. The first thing is, of course, about the tweet. Please do post about this session on LinkedIn or tweet about this on Twitter. Make sure that you use the hashtag ZohoInspire. The top 3 posts every day will win exciting Zoho goodies, or you would also get a $50 partner credit. So go ahead, start tweeting and posting on LinkedIn. Don't forget to use the hashtag ZohoInspire. So first, let me give you a quick introduction to the trainers that we have in today's session. First one, yes, that's me. And in addition to that, we have 3 more people on this session. Mahila will be covering some of the topics today. And Dheeraj and Dhyanish will be available with us throughout the session, answering the questions for you. So if you have any questions, as I said, don't hesitate. Go ahead and start asking them in the questions section. Lear, I can see that you're saying that you're not able to hear. Please try refreshing your screen and check if that resolves the issue. Okay, I think you would not be able to hear that. Let me just type that out for you. Thank you so much, Michelle. Yeah, this is one thing that I would really like you guys to do. If you see that someone is facing some issues, just let them know that they can just fix that by refreshing their screen. That would be of great help to our trainers. So that was a quick introduction to the trainers. Moving on to the agenda. Today, what we'll do is we'll have an introduction to Zoho Books. That is, we'll see what is Zoho Books, how it is beneficial for you, and how it will make things easier for you. Then we will see how to set up an organization. We'll start from scratch. We'll set up a new organization, and then we'll see what are the basic things that you need to set up and add in Zoho Books to make sure that you can perform your everyday transactions with ease. Then we will have a look at what are the different everyday transactions that you can perform in Zoho Books. And then we'll have a look at time-based invoicing, which is going to be projects. And then we'll have a look at the banking module. Just a second. I see that Carol is facing issues. Let me just respond to that one moment. Yeah, so if you're facing issues continuously, please try to use a different browser, or you can even try accessing this using your mobile app. Preferably, try using the Chrome browser. That seems to have no issues compared to the rest of the browsers. And moving on with the session, then we will have a look at importing data. More specifically, we'll look at what are the common errors that you would face while importing data, how to fix them. Then we will discuss about advanced operations in Zoho Books. We'll have a look at how you can generate various reports in Zoho Books and how you can customize them. Then we will have a look at automating tasks in Zoho Books. What are the different levels of automations that you can perform? And finally, we'll see how Zoho Books can be integrated with other Zoho applications. It seems like some people are still facing issues. Just give me one moment. I'll let our technical team know about this so that they can check what is going wrong. So please bear with me for a moment. All right, I have informed our technical team about the issue that some of our participants are facing. That is being worked on. They'll be checking what is going wrong. Um, yeah, once again, as I said, please stick to Chrome browser. And mm, again, that seems to have no issues with it. So please stick to the Chrome browser. And if you still face any issues, do let us know, and our trainers will be checking on it. So I'll be moving on with this session now. Yeah, it looks like Firefox is also all good, so you can try that as well. So first of all, what is Zoho Books, and how does it simplify accounting? Let's get through that question here, because once we know more about it, it will make more sense as we get into much more detailed concepts. So Zoho Books is the accounting software. People who are completely new to Zoho Books, what it does is it helps you in managing your receivables and payables. It helps you in integrating your bank account with Zoho Books so that you can start fetching in bank feeds. You can reconcile your bank accounts. You can match those bank feeds with the transactions that you have recorded in Zoho Books. So this helps you in making sure that the data that you enter in your accounting system is the same as what is there in your bank account. So I can see the video fine, but I have no audio at all. Drew, sorry, I'm not sure what the issue is, but yeah, my team will definitely help you out with it. So yeah, moving on. In addition to all those things, you would be able to perform various customizations. You will be able to integrate Zoho Books with other applications as well, so that when you run your business, you can make sure that all the data is moved between different applications seamlessly. And you can also perform various automations to save time and reduce manual error. So with that out of the way, we will check how we can set up an organization. So what we will do is, first we will create a new organization, then we will add new employees, and we will set up our chart of accounts. We will set up taxes. We will also go through some of the important settings and preferences that you need to go through before you start using Zoho Books. Or in your case, when you set up the organization for your clients, these would be some of the important settings that you need to go through before you start using Zoho Books for them, or before you start entering data for them. Then we will have a look at how we can add vendors and customer details and the items. Then we will quickly have a look at how to enter opening balances. So let's jump into the real deal. Let's see how we can set up organization. So I'm going to share my screen now. You should be able to see Zoho Books. Just let me know if you are. I'm about to share it in a moment. And now you should be able to see a screen that says online GST accounting. So that is the page that you would see when you end up on the Indian edition. If you are in the US edition, or if you are in a different region, you would see something different. It will be online accounting software built for your business. So this is what you would see. Please give me a confirmation. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much. Yeah, so this is what you would see once you start and once you go to the Zoho Books webpage. And if you do not have an account with Zoho, in that case, these are not the options that you would see. You would not see Access Zoho Books. You would not see your photo here. Rather, you would see an option which tells you to start your 14-day free trial or sign up for Zoho. But since most of you guys already have Zoho accounts, this is what you would see. And you will be able to set up a new organization. So once you click on that, you will be able to enter an organization name, and you will be able to enter the country. So the organization name is going to be the business or business's name. So in this case, I'm going to go with Zilker, and I'm entering Zilker Global. And the country, in this case, I'm setting it as United States or the USA, and I'll click on Let's Get Started. But before I do that, let me just give you some more clarity about the country here. The country that you select here, USA or Canada or Australia or any other country, it's really important you pay attention to it, because if you select one of the countries for which we have a country specific edition, you will be restricted to that particular country, and you will not be able to change the country anymore. However, there are advantages to that as well. Majorly, it has advantages. For example, if you select the UK edition, you will have UK specific VAT already added in it. If you select USA, you will have Avalara integration and various other options that are available in the US edition. The same applies for Canada and Australia as well. They will have their own country-specific taxes and reports. But if you select a country which does not have an edition specifically yet, in that case, you will end up in the global edition. The global edition is extremely flexible, and you can create the taxes in whichever way you want. You can customize it the way you want. So now that we have that out of the way, we have selected the country as USA here. Some of the settings that you would see depending on the country that you select would vary. So right now I have selected it as USA, so my business location shows USA. And here I'm being asked to enter the company address. I'm just going to enter some information here so that when we generate our documents, our PDF documents or estimates, invoices, we have some data on it. I don't want it to be blank. So I'm just selecting this information over here. And here my currency, as you can see, has been set by default to USD because USA has a country specific edition. Similarly, if you had selected Canada or Australia, your country specific currency would have been set there by default and you would not be able to change it. If you had selected a different country which does not have a country specific edition, you have the flexibility to change the currency. So once that is done, you can click on save and continue, and you will be asked to set up your taxes. So let's just give it a moment to load the screen. So yeah, once that is done, you will be asked to set up your taxes. That is whether your business is liable to collect sales taxes or not. Now, if your business, or let's say that as a partner, if your clients' businesses in US are not liable to collect taxes, please make sure that you select no, because if you select yes, you will not be able to disable the option easily. So if the business is not liable to collect taxes, make sure that you select no. If you select yes, you will be asked to enter the taxes here. So you can start entering the tax rates and the tax name and the percentage, and you can also start entering the tax authorities. So one thing that you need to note here is that there will be multiple tax authorities in your country, and this is, again, I'm specifically talking about USA here. I'll be talking about Canada, Australia, and the global edition shortly, so please bear with me. So if you are in Australia, make sure that you enter all the different tax authorities that are going to be there and associate the corresponding taxes under the respective authorities. Please don't mix that up. Make sure that you enter them correctly. So in this case, I'm just keeping things simple, and I'm just entering tax authority 1, and I'm just entering, let me just rephrase that. Yeah, so I'm just entering another rate here. So I have 2 taxes, and let's say I'm just adding another authority. Yeah, so now I have 2 taxes here added. If I want, I can add more. I can also connect with Avalara so that it automatically recognizes what is the state that my business is in, and also the customer's business. So that helps you a lot with the taxes. So if you have an account with Avalara, you can set up the integration. And before we move on, let me go back to the presentation. I just have a couple of slides to show on the presentation. Just a moment. Yeah. So if you are in Canada, what will happen is you will be asked to enter your tax agency. So what will happen is you can set up multiple tax agencies. You can set up your tax rates and also the different tax exemptions. And if you are in the Australian edition, you will have the tax settings screen. And you will be again asked whether your business is registered to GST or not. If yes, you can enter that, and you can enter your Australian business number and what is the reporting period and whether the tax basis is accrual or cash. And you can also select the date from which the BAS report needs to be generated. If you are in the global edition, you have the option to select whether you are going to collect VAT. Whether you're going to track VAT MOS, and you can also decide or select whether you want to have separate accounts to track the liability and the tax that you collect. So this is how the settings will change depending on the edition that you're in. So let's get back to Zoho Books, where we were setting up the organization. You guys should be able to see Zoho Books right now. If you are not, please let me know. And here we'll be proceeding to the next step. And this is the place where I get an option to select what are the different modules that I want to see in Zoho Books. So here you can see that I have estimates, retainer invoices, timesheets, price list, sales orders, and purchase orders. And I also have an option to enable inventory. Let's say that I have a business which entirely deals with services. I don't even need inventory. So in that case, enabling inventory doesn't make sense. Similarly, I can skip on purchase orders and sales orders as well. So I don't need these two modules, so I can uncheck that. We'll go through price list later and retainer invoice as well later. But you can get an idea that from this screen, what you can do is you will be able to select only the things that you need. You can skip on the rest. But in this case, I'm selecting everything because I want to show you how the entire Zoho Books features look like. So we're selecting everything. And what we're doing here is we are giving an inventory start date. This is going to be the same date which you're going to use in your opening balance start date. This will be the date when you start entering transactions in Zoho Books or you migrate to Zoho Books. In this case, I'm selecting it as 1st April 2020, and we are going to get started with this. So once I click on this button, we'll be taken into Zoho Books, and I will be able to, just a second. So just give me one moment. Yeah. So we have our organization ready here. I had multiple organization. It was getting mixed up. So I just made sure that I marked this as default. So now we have our organization ready. We are in the organization. And as I mentioned, there are just certain tasks which I want to do before I start entering all the data. So the first thing that I would want to do is add my employees in this organization. So that is the first thing that I would want to do, because I don't want to sit and enter every single data in this organization. I'm a very lazy guy. I would like to push some of my work to my colleagues. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on settings here on the right top corner of the screen, and I'm going to click on users and roles. That is the third option that is available in settings. So once I click on that, I have different options here. I can invite a user here, but before that, I want to check out what are the different roles that are available, because when I'm inviting a user, I can associate different roles to the user. So first thing that I'm doing here before I invite a user is check what are the different roles that are available. By default, you have 4 roles. The admin has unrestricted access to all the modules. Then you have staff assigned customers only, and timesheet staff. So all these roles have specific purpose. You will not be able to delete them. However, you can clone them and create completely new roles. So if you want to check what are the permissions that are available for a staff user, you can just clone it, and you will be able to see the different permission or access level that they have for each module. So here on the left side, you will be able to see the different modules, and you can select for which module you want to give them access. And at the same time, right next to it, you have an option to decide whether you want to give them full access or whether you just want them to view the data in that module, or whether they can create anything in that module or delete or edit. So you have this option for pretty much all the modules that are there, and you can choose whatever you want to, and you can create a completely customized role for your business, and you can start assigning that to your colleagues or employees or partners. One thing that you need to keep here in mind is that the admin role is different from a role which you just clone and assign all the permissions. So the admin is a special role, and admin has its own unique privileges. Just because you create a new role and provide all these permissions, it doesn't mean that that becomes the admin role. So the admin is a unique role, and it has its own special privileges. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I am going to invite a user. I'm going to invite my colleague Mahila in this organization. I'm going to enter her email address here. And I'm adding her as an admin so that she has unrestricted access to all these modules. So now she would have received an invite, and here on the right side, I can see that I have invited her as an admin in this organization. So with that out of the way, what I'll do is I'll move on to some of the specific settings that are important for me. So the first thing that I would like to do here is, once again, I come back to the preferences. So what I have done is, let me just take a step back. I think I rushed through this part. So I go to settings and preferences, and here I select the different modules that are necessary for me. In case I missed out on something, I can select these here. The next thing that I'm going to do is, we'll talk about inventory add-on and the rest later. The next thing that I'm going to do is select whether I'm going to provide discounts or not. And if I do, whether it's going to be on an item level or a transaction level. And after that, I select, in this case, I'm setting it as a transaction level. And then I select whether adjustments or shipping charges are going to be involved, and whether tax is going to be inclusive or exclusive. And if it's going to vary for each transaction, then I might just select tax inclusive or exclusive. In this case, to keep things simple, I'm going to select tax exclusive. And if I want to include a salesperson field, I'll select this option. And here I'll be able to customize my organization address format that is displayed on all the transaction modules. If I want to add something extra, I can use the placeholders that are available here. There are different options available here. I just need to add them. Or if I want some data to be present on the document constantly, I can just type out whatever I want. So let's say that I want to mention the state California constantly on the invoice. I can do this, but usually we just fetch it through the placeholder. And in the future, if the business address does change, this will automatically fetch it from the organization profile so that you don't have to manually update it. The next thing that I would do is, let me just save this first. Yeah, the next thing that I would do is go to branding so that I can upload my organization logo and it's displayed on all my transactions. And if I want, I can also change the theme of Zoho Books. There are quite a few options available. You can choose whichever one you like. The next thing is portal. So we have two portals. One is customer portal or the client portal, and the second one is the vendor portal. The client portal obviously is for your clients, and vendor portal is for vendors. What it allows you to do is, it allows you to create a unique interface for your clients where they can log in with their own username and password and check what are the different transactions that they have had with you till now. They'll be able to see the estimates that you send out to them, the sales orders, the invoices. They'll be able to make payments from there, and they would also be able to generate the statement of accounts from there and download it on their own. You don't have to worry about sending it to them on a monthly basis. And also, in addition to all these things, one of my favorite features of the client portal is that the moment your client receives an estimate or an invoice and they open it, you will get a notification in Zoho Books telling you that they have viewed it. So gone are those days when your client just tells you that, hey, you know what, I have never received the invoice, that's why I have not made the payment. So they cannot dodge your invoice anymore. The moment they open it, you will get a notification and you will know that they have seen it. And also, if you send out an estimate, they can accept it or decline it. They can even make comments saying that the price is too high, can you reduce it, whatever they want. And you can also respond to those comments through Zoho Books itself. So it creates a unique environment where you can communicate with your clients. The same goes for vendor portal as well. And as you can see, this is the portal name. You can edit it if you want. And this is the portal URL. The URL is the link which they will use to access your client or vendor portal. Every customer and vendor will have their own unique ID and password with which they can log in. Now, if you want, you can customize this URL. You can change the portal name so that this part at the end changes. And also, if you don't want it to show as books.zoho.com, rather you want it to say books.zilker.com or books. Whichever company yours is, if you want it to say something like that, you can make use of the custom domain option. So you will be able to create a new domain I mean, you will be able to mention your own custom domain here, and your clients will be able to access that. Here, your clients can ideally bookmark this page so that they can always access it with ease, because obviously this is not a link which they can memorize easily, so they can always bookmark this so that they can access it with ease. And here you have the options to select how you want to customize the client portal to an extent. You can provide them view access to sales orders and also the projects and timesheets that they have. So I'll save this, and I'll give you a quick sneak peek of how the client portal and vendor portal looks like shortly. We'll finish these settings and then I'll give you a quick sneak peek through a screenshot. Then we have the customers and vendors section. Here you need to set the credit limit for your customers. If you don't want to exceed a credit limit for a particular client before they make a payment, you can set up these restrictions. If you want, you can just get a warning message, or if you want to prevent the transaction from being created completely, you can do that as well. And also, if you want to include the sales orders amount with this, you can do that too. And here you will be customizing the way in which your customers or your clients' billing and shipping address will be displayed. And I'll save this. So now that that is done, we'll move on to approvals. So Zoho Books has approvals for both sales and purchase transactions, and you can enable this from the settings option that is available here. And you can click on enable sales approval, and you can either have a single level approval. You will be able to see who are the different approvers that are available in this organization. If there are multiple people, multiple users, you will be able to see them here. People who might be wondering why Mahila is not being displayed here, even though I had invited her, the reason is that the invitation is not yet accepted. Once the invitation has been accepted, the other users would also be displayed here. And if you want to have multi-level approvals, that is, let's say the first level will be approved by me and the next level will be approved by the other user, you can set up such approvals as well. And in this case, I'm just going to disable the approvals for now so that we can keep things simple and we don't have to go through just an extra step. The same applies for purchase approvals as well. Just give it a moment. It's reloading because I disabled the approvals. Yeah, we're back in the approval screen, and yeah, here you can enable the approvals if you want for purchases as well. It's the same thing. And items. So this is one of the important screens when you're setting up these preferences. We enabled price list initially when we were setting up the organization. I'm just going to skip that for now. We'll talk about price list later. And we also enabled our inventory tracking. And here I have different options, whether I want to prevent the stock from going below zero, or whether I want to receive an error message or a notification that the stock has fallen below zero. And if I want to be notified if the stock falls below a reorder point, and also whether I want to track landed costs for item or not. We'll discuss about landed costs later. And here I can also set up the decimal rates for my item quantity. Depending on the business that you are in, you can decide whether you want to have decimals or not. Maybe let's say you sell mobile phones. In that case, obviously, you're not going to sell, let's say, 1.5 units of an iPhone. It's either going to be 1 unit or 2 units. So you can entirely skip the decimals for that, and you can just make it 0, and you can save it. And one more thing that needs to be done in this section is the field customization. Here, specifically these two options, the SKU and the item image. These two options are available, but by default, they are inactive. So if you want them, you can make them as active so that you can enter the image for your items, and you can also record SKU for your items. And the SKU field would also be helpful for you if you're going to use barcode scanning in Zoho Books. So we'll talk about that shortly when we are discussing how items can be created. And the final thing that you need to do here in this screen is the accountant. So if yours is a business where account codes are mandatory, you need to make sure that you enable this option. And also this option, the unique account code option, is also selected so that account codes are not duplicated. So with all those things out of the way, let's move on to taxes. So as I said, when I was setting up the organization, I entered those taxes. So this is what is available. So these are the two taxes that I had added. And if I have any tax exemptions, I need to mention them here. I can start creating new exemptions from here. So I'm just entering a basic exemption reason here. And I'm saving this. And also, let me go back. So here I can select whether this particular exemption is at an item level or a customer level. In this case, I'm selecting it as customer and saving it, so that whenever I select a particular customer as non-taxable, I'll be able to associate this particular exemption. And here I can start adding my other tax authorities. And as I showed in the previous screenshot, if it is in Canada, you will be able to add tax agencies here. And if you are in the Australian edition, in this screen, you will not have authorities or exemptions. You would have tax rates and tax settings. And in the global edition as well, you will have tax rates and tax settings. The next thing that we have is, let me just check, give me one moment. Let me make sure that I have covered all the things that I need to. Yeah, we saw how we can add employees, setting up taxes, important settings and preferences. The next step that we have is setting up chart of accounts. So let's jump into that. You will be able to find chart of accounts on the left side under accountant. And there, the third option from the bottom will be chart of accounts. You can click on that and you would see that by default, you have a huge list of accounts that are available. These are created by Zoho Books for you when you create a new organization. There are accounts of different types. You will be able to see accounts of expense types, liability, your cost of goods sold, income, asset accounts. A lot of account types are available, and all these are created by default. And you can also see that a lot of these accounts have this lock icon right next to them, which means that you'll not be able to delete them because they are there for a specific purpose. For example, if you take the accounts receivable and the accounts payable accounts, these are there for a specific reason. The receivables is there for tracking the money that you're supposed to receive, and the payables are there for tracking the money that you're supposed to pay your vendors. So deleting them will mess up with the entire system, so you won't be able to delete them. However, if you want, you can create new accounts. You can create an account of different types. There are various types available of different categories. You can choose whichever account type you want. Now we'll see how we can add a new account. So for now, I'm selecting the type as expense. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a sub account. And when I say a sub account, it means that this particular account that I'm creating will be mapped under another existing account, which will be the parent account. And in this case, I'm going to select, let's say, travel expenses. So I'll select travel expense, and I'm creating a sub account because I want to track every individual employee's travel expenses separately. So what I'll do is I'll create a separate account called Mahila Travel Expense. So I'll create this. So Mahila is my employee and my colleague. So I have added her expense account here, and I will save this. If I want, I can enter an account code and the description as well. I'll save this, and you will be able to see that this account has been created as a sub account under travel expense. And before I proceed with this, or the next thing that I will be doing after this screen is adding my opening balance. So before I proceed from this screen, what I need to do is I need to make sure that I enter my bank account as well. because when I'm going to enter my opening balance, I need to make sure that I have already entered three details. Number one, I need to make sure that I have entered a bank account if I have a bank account. Well, most of the businesses do, so it's always advisable to add the bank account first. The second thing is to make sure that you have added all your contacts, that is your customers and vendors, and preferably their opening balances as well. Even if you don't, it's fine. Next thing is items. You need to make sure that you add all these things, these three things before you get started with entering opening balances. So we're doing the first thing here, that is adding a bank account. So I'm going to select the type as, or search the type as bank. I'll select that and I'll enter the bank account name. Now, I'm not going to get into details of how you can set up bank account in Zoho Books right now. We'll cover that later. Right now, I'm just creating the account so that I can enter the opening balances for it. I can provide an account code or the account number. I can even add bank accounts of different currencies, and I'll just save it. With that, my bank account is added, and I need to go on to the second step, that is adding my contacts. They are going to be my customers. I can find them under sales, or if it is my vendors, I can find them under purchases. The process for both of them is going to be pretty similar. So when I'm creating a customer here, I can go to the customers module. I can click on this plus button right next to customers. I can click on create new customer. I can click on this button as well, or I can use this quick action to create a customer immediately. So there are different ways to do the same thing in Zoho Books, not just while creating a customer. You will see this multiple times when we are going through Zoho Books, that there are different ways to do the same thing. You can choose whichever option is convenient for you. And in addition to all these, you also have the keyboard shortcuts. You can find those keyboard shortcuts by clicking on this question mark icon on the right top corner and clicking on keyboard shortcuts. So as I said, there are various ways to do the same task in Zoho Books. Feel free to use the one that you're comfortable with. So let's go ahead and create a customer here. The process is pretty straightforward. You select whether this particular customer is a business or not, and then you enter their details. So here I'm going to enter the details of the customer, and I'm entering their name. And since this is a business, I'll be entering their company name as well. So I'm just entering the company name. And the next thing is the display name. So the display name can either be the business name or the person's name. It's up to you to decide what you want to select. Make sure that the customer display name is unique, or if you're going to have duplicates, please make sure that you enable that from the settings. Then you enter your customer's details. The customer email is important if you're going to do two things. Number one, if you're going to enable client portal for them, you need to mention the customer's email address. Obviously, without the email address, you won't be able to send them an invite. So make sure that you enter the email address if you are going to invite them to the client portal. The second thing, again, pretty obvious thing, if you're going to email them invoices or estimates, make sure that you enter their email address. Then you will be able to enter their phone numbers. Just entering a random email address here. So I don't want to spam anyone, so I'm just entering a random email address here. So we'll proceed with this. And I can enter the phone numbers, the website. And here I have an option to select the tax preference, whether this particular customer is taxable or tax exempt. If they are taxable, I can select the tax rate, and this rate will be applied for every transaction that I record for them. So this fetches the data by default. And if they are tax exempt, I can mention that, and I can mention the reason and also the authority too. So these are different ways in which you can change the settings as per the client. And this option that you see here, the currency, if you have a client from a different region, a different country, other than the country in which you're running your business, they would prefer to have their invoices in their own currency. Let's say that you have a client in Europe, they would prefer to receive invoices in euros. So you can set their currency as euro, so that whenever you record a transaction for them, that is whenever you make a sale to them, automatically the currency is converted to euros, and the exchange rate is also fetched by Zoho. We fetch it from openexchangerates.org. So automatically Zoho Books converts the rates for you and updates the rate. However, if you're not satisfied with the exchange rate, you want to enter it manually, you can disable the automatic rates and you can always enter it manually. And the next thing that we have here is the opening balance. So this particular customer, if they owe you some money, if there is some opening balance when you're migrating to Zoho Books, you can enter the opening balance here. Usually, as a partner, when you're trying to import the data of your customer, this would not be the best way to do it, because you wouldn't be entering every single customer manually. Rather, what you would be doing is importing them in bulk. We'll see how that will work out shortly. So if you want, you can enter an opening balance here for the customer. So in this case, I'm entering 100, and I had enabled the credit limit. So if I want, I can mention that as well. In this case, I'm just skipping that. And payment terms are going to be the credit period that you're going to provide to this customer. You can always change it on a transaction level. This is just the default value. You can provide it as due on receipt or net 15, net 30, whichever you want. And if you want to enable client portal for them, you can check this box. And rest all are pretty self-explanatory. You can start entering their addresses here. You can select USA and Street 1. I'm just entering this again so that it is available on the invoice and the invoice is not blank when we create our transaction. So I'm just copying this address here as well. And if I have multiple contact persons in the same company, I can enter their details here. So this is a business, and obviously there'll be different people that I'll be dealing with. So I'll be entering their details, their phone numbers, everything here. We'll talk about custom fields, reporting tags, and remarks later. So I'm going to save this. So now my customer has been created, and you can see the customer overview screen. I'll be able to fetch their details from here, and I can see the outstanding receivables, which is the opening balance. In case you made a mistake, you can always update it from here, this option. And the next thing is you can check out all the sales transaction that you have with them from this tab. And one more thing is the statement of accounts that you can generate from here. You can customize it based on the time period, and you can email it to them from Zoho Books itself. Now, as I mentioned, there are different ways to do the same thing in Zoho Books. You can send transactions for this customer, create transactions for this customer from here. However, more importantly, there are just a couple of things under the More section. Number one, associate templates. So what this allows you to do is associate specific templates, both PDF and email templates, to the customer. Let's say that you have a client in Europe, specifically in France, another in Germany, and they prefer to receive their estimates, invoices in their own language, in French and German. So instead of sending them an invoice in English, what you can do is you can have a specific template in French, another template in German, and you can associate those templates with the customer itself, so that whenever you record a transaction for them, automatically the template in that language is sent to them. So you don't have to manually update that. The same goes for emails as well. We'll see how we can customize them later. And after this, you can, if you want, you can link this to a vendor, or if you want, you can clone as well. But those are pretty straightforward details. We're not going to get into that. So I'll show you one more thing, which is the vendors. So if I want, I can start adding my vendors here. And I'm adding a vendor here, and I'm just entering the details. One difference that you would notice is for vendors, you don't have the option to enter taxes. So it'll be available only for customers. So you can skip that, and you can just select the currency. Rest all is the same as creating a customer. So now we have our customer and vendor both created. And the next thing that we need to do is bring in our items. But before we do that, what I want to show you is how to import customers in bulk. This is the import process, which is going to be the same for all all the modules in Zoho Books. So if you would like to bring in data in bulk, that is import data for any particular module, you need to go to that particular module first. In this case, I'm bringing in data for customers. So I'm in the customer section, and I need to click on this button with 3 dashes on it. And I just click on import customers, and I'll continue. So this will be the interface which you would see very similar. This will be pretty similar in other modules as well. First, you will be asked to select the upload file. Then you would be asked what is going to be the duplicate handling process. That is whether the duplicates will be skipped or overwritten. One thing that you have here at the top is the sample file. Now, here you have 2 options. Either you can download CSV file or you can download the XLS file. Whenever in whichever module you have an option to download the XLS file, I would strongly recommend you to download the XLS file, because the CSV file has a sheet which gives you information on what is the data that you can import. That is the format of the import file. It shows you what are the columns and what should be the data in it. However, the Excel file has an extra sheet in it specifically telling you what is the purpose of each field, whether that particular field is mandatory or not, and if the field will accept only default values, it will tell you what are the default values it will accept, and it will also tell you what is going to be the data type of all these fields. So you will get all those information which will be helpful for you when you're setting up the organization. I'm going to download the XLS file real quick to show you how it looks like. I'll be sharing the screen. Bear with me just a moment. So you should be able to see the Excel sheet right now. Here you can see the details. I'm just zooming in a little bit so that it's clear. So you have all the details that you just entered while creating a contact, a customer. You can see the salutation, the first name, email address, phone numbers, all these details which we just entered while we were creating a customer. Now you can import multiple customers using this import option, and this is going to be the import file format. The second sheet that I was talking about is this one. So here you can see that the second sheet has the field name, what is the description, what is the purpose of it, and what is the field specification, that is the data type that is supported by it, what are the allowed values, and whether the field is mandatory or not. So whenever you have an option to download the XLS file, you can download that. So that will be really helpful for you. And let me just move on to Zoho Books. But yeah, before that, one more thing. This import file, what you can do is, if you're going to import your customers in bulk, you need to enter your opening balances, right? So we saw that when we are creating a customer, we had a field to enter opening balances. So as I was saying, if you're importing your customers in bulk, what you need to do is you just need to add a new column and enter opening balances and enter the opening balance of the customers in it. And you can map that with the opening balance field that is available in Zoho Books. So let's move back to Zoho Books now. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try importing this file that I just downloaded. Just a moment. Yeah. So I have this file here. I'm going to import it, and the next screen will be mapping the fields. So this is what I was saying. If you have the column names, the column headers in your import file, the same as what you have in Zoho Books, if both the names match, Zoho Books will automatically recognize it for you and map the corresponding fields. However, if you have a completely different column header, you can manually search for it and map it with the respective field. And once you add the opening balance amount, you can make the opening balance column in the import file, you can map it with this field. And I'll click save. So here you can see that it tells me that one row is ready to be imported and number of rows that are ready to be skipped are 8. So this usually happens when there is some issue with the data that you have in the import file. So here you can see all this data. So these are already found in the CSV file, so I have not deleted them. So what you can do is, if there are errors, you need to, I'll tell you how you can read this. So it tells you that there is an issue in this particular row in the import file, and this tells you what is the issue. So this is how you will be able to fix them. I'll be getting into details of what are the common errors that you will encounter and how to fix them later on during this session. Unmapped field is just a warning. You can ignore it. It tells you what are the fields that are not mapped during this import. If everything is fine, you will be able to import all the data. So let's skip this for now. So that's the import process. And we saw what are the two ways in which we can enter the opening balance for our customers and vendors. There is also another way. I'll show that in a moment when we get into the opening balances screen. So here I'm going to create a new item, and I click on new. And as you can see here, I can upload an image if I want to. And the next thing is, let me just zoom in a bit because I noticed that somebody was said that they're not able to see the screen properly. So I have zoomed in a little bit, not too much. So I select here whether this item is going to be goods or service. And I can mention a name here. For now, I'm just going to mention it as iPhone 11. And here I can enter the SKU. So this will be the number where this will be the place where I enter the barcode number if I'm going to use barcode scanner. Make sure that it's at least 10 digits. And if I'm using a barcode scanner, I can just attach this and scan it, and it will recognize the number. Or if I'm using the mobile app, I can use the camera option that is available in the mobile app. And here I'll be entering the unit. So I'm just selecting pieces here. And the next thing that I'll be entering is the sales information and purchase information. So this is the place where I enter the default selling price and the default cost price of this particular item. I know that iPhone 11 does not sell at $300, but I'm just entering this for now. So here we have the iPhone 11 selling at around $300, and the cost price is $250. And here I'm tracking the different accounts in which we're going to track the selling price and the cost. The selling and the sales and purchases of this particular item, and whether this item is taxable or non-taxable. And here I select whether this particular item should be inventory tracked or not. And if yes, I should select which account it should track it in. And then I have two important fields which will affect my opening balance. So on the day when I move to Zoho Books, if I already have stock of this particular item, I need to mention that here. Let's say that I have 10 units of iPhone 11 when I move to Zoho Books. I need to enter at which rate or at what rate I purchased each unit of those 10 iPhone 11s that I have. So let's say that I purchased each of them at $250. I'll mention it. And based on the information that I have mentioned in these two fields, the opening stock and the opening stock rate per unit, my opening balance, the inventory asset for this particular item will be calculated. It will be calculated as 10 times 250. So 2,500 will be the inventory asset of this particular item in the opening balance. Then I'll have the reorder point. This basically is going to be the point beyond which, if the inventory falls or the stock falls, I'll get a notification, and I can also place an order from my preferred vendor easily. You would ideally be setting this up if you know that if you need to have a specific quantity of a particular product always available with you in stock. Let's say I always make at least I always sell at least 5 units of iPhone 11 every single day. In that case, I need to make sure that I always have 5 units of iPhone 11 with me, because if I don't, I lose out on a potential sale, and I can, that is a loss for me. So I always make sure that I have at least 6. So that's why I'm setting the reorder point as 6. So I'll save this. With that, my item has been created, and here you can see the opening stock, which is 10. The stock on hand is the physical stock that is available with you. The committed stock is calculated based on the sales orders that you record, and the available sale is going to be stock on hand minus the committed stock. Because let's say that you commit to a client saying that you're going to sell them 2 units of iPhones. That technically means that you can sell only the other 8 to the rest of the customers who come in. You cannot say that you are going to sell all 10 to the next customer. So the available sale will show you stock on hand minus committed stock. And the transaction section is the place where you will be able to see all the transactions that this particular item is associated with. And you can also create price lists from here. We'll have a look at price lists later. So with all these things set up, the next thing that we have to do is enter opening balance. So we'll click on settings and we'll go to opening balances. In the opening balance screen, you can see that already the inventory asset from the iPhone 11 is populated here based on the stock and the rate that I had mentioned. And then I have the accounts receivable from the customer that I had added. And since I have not recorded the corresponding entries for these two, I have an opening balance adjustment. When there is a mismatch of debits and credits, automatically Zoho Books will create an opening balance adjustment to make sure that they both match. Your goal should be to make sure that there are no differences between debits and credits. The best way to do things in opening balance is first make sure that you enter the migration date properly. This is going to be the date when you start using Zoho Books. And when you're about to import the data of your client from another system, make sure that you run the trial balance on the date prior to this date. Make sure that all the transactions are included in it. So run it at the end of that date, generate the report, and start entering the values in the corresponding accounts. Here you can see the asset accounts, the expense, the liability, the income accounts, everything is available here. So you can start entering the values in the corresponding debits and credits. And when it comes to accounts receivable and payables, you can still import them if you have not already done that while creating the customer or vendor, or if you have not imported it and mentioned it while importing it. So if you miss out on those two situations, you can still import the opening balances from here for both your customers and vendors. So with all that done, you are good to go. You can just click on continue and you can record this. So while entering opening balances, you saw that you had an option to mention the opening balance at a customer level. So in this case, I mentioned that a customer has $100 opening balance. Now, if I don't want to track it as $100 single amount, let's say that it's 2 invoices of $50 each, what I can do is I can bring in 2 invoices for $50 each, but I need to make sure that they both are dated prior to the opening balance date. And another thing that I need to keep in mind is that I should not enter 100 while creating the customer in the opening balance field, and also bring in those 2 invoices because that will duplicate it. So I should do only 1. If I want, I can enter 50 while creating the customer and I can bring in an invoice for $50, but I should not enter 100 in both cases. That will end up duplicating it. And also, once you have set up all the opening balances and everything is proper, you realize that there is still something wrong with the previous transactions. You can still go back and edit them, but make sure that you come back to opening balances and click the sync button. It will be available once you make those changes. Please come back to opening balances, click the sync button so that those transactions are synced with Zoho Books, the opening balance that is there. So that's pretty much it about the opening balances. Let's jump back into the presentation to make sure that we have covered all the things that we needed to. I believe I had to show you the client portal and the vendor portal show. So let's see that now. So this is how the client portal will look like. On the left side, they'll be able to see all the transaction modules, just like how it is in Zoho Books for you. They'll be able to see the estimates that you send out to them, the invoices, the payments that they have made. And they can also make payments from here. They can store their card details, and they can edit their address. They can also give you reviews. They can do all that from the client portal. And similarly, the vendor portal looks like this, pretty similar to the client portal. On the left side, you can see that they have their purchase orders, invoices. Uh, the thing here is that uh, in vendor portal, you're still seeing invoices, because from your vendor's perspective, it's an invoice that they send out to you. For you, it is a bill that you're receiving from them. So from their perspective, it's still an invoice. That's why it's mentioned as invoice. So they'll be able to see all the invoices that they send out to you from here. So with that, let's just make sure that we have covered all the topics that are here while setting up the organization. We saw how to set up an organization. We added employees. We set up chart of accounts. We set up the taxes. We went through all the important settings and preferences. We added our vendors and items. Then we set up the opening balances. So a quick walkthrough through the opening balance one more time. If you're starting for a new organization, in most of the cases, this will not happen because your client would already have a lot of data. But if it is completely new, make sure that you enter the owner's equity, the bank balance, and the cash balance. And you can bring in the customers and vendors with zero balance. And you can track inventory for the items, and you can start entering the items. Most of the cases, if it is completely new, the stock will be zero, the opening stock. And if you need to, you can create new accounts in chart of accounts, and you can start recording the transactions. But mostly you will be migrating from an existing system to Zoho Books. So in that case, make sure that you generate the trial balance, and you follow the order that I had mentioned. So what you need to do is first bring in your bank account, bring in your customers and vendors, add your items, enter the opening balance, and then you can start creating the transactions. So with that, I'll be taking a short break. Mahila will be taking over the session. Just a second. Looks like, let me go back to the client portal one more time. I'll show you the screen one more time. So here, as you can see, there are various options that are available. So as I said, the client will be able to see all the contact persons. They will be able to make payments from there. If you have set up a payment gateway integration, we'll talk about that in detail later. They will be able to see various details, all the transactions that they have had with you. They will also be able to generate the statement of accounts on their own. You don't have to email it to them every single month or every single week. So yeah, with that, I'll be taking a break, and Mahila will be continuing the session with the transactions module, everyday transactions that will be recorded in Zoho Books. Once that module is over, we'll be taking a break for 30 minutes, and then we will be back, and we will be continuing with time-based invoicing and banking.